Hello and welcome back to another incredible episode with the Uplevel with Jeannie Townsend podcast. And in this episode, I'm incredibly excited to interview a wonderful expert on gamification in your business. So you're going to be blown away by Tama-Lea Lorenzen. And before I get started, let me just tell you a little bit about her. She teaches entrepreneurs to incorporate engaging gamification into their online courses and memberships. In the training industry for over 20 years, she has worked with companies like Prudential Financial, IBM, and Starbucks. So we've heard of them, right? From this experience and as adjunct faculty at local universities, she's developed a process for creating online programs that students are excited to engage with, implement, and get results. Welcome to Uplevel with Jeannie Townsend. Tama-Lea.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. This is going to be a fun conversation.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. So would you mind starting out by answering a simple question of how would you define gamification?
So you think that's a simple question, right?
Yeah.
So depending on who you ask, you might get slight variations in the definition of gamification, but I like to keep it really simple and just say that gamification is using game mechanics or game strategy to motivate your customers to do something specific.
Okay. So I know we'll get into more specifics, but would you mind, just with that definition in mind, giving a specific example?
Yeah, you bet. So I'll use examples that we're all familiar with, right? So one of the things that probably most of us are familiar with is Starbucks.
Yeah.
and they have a program called Starbucks Rewards. And one of the things that they do great that is an application of gamification is the Starbucks Rewards, where you gain points towards free coffee and pastries, etc. Now, while I'm giving that example, I do want to say that a lot of people, as soon as they hear gamification, their mind immediately goes to badges, points, leaderboards, things like that. And those are certainly part of gamification, but what they are is the outcome of the strategy. So they're like a tactic or an end result, but the leaderboard and the points, et cetera, are not the strategy itself. But using Starbucks, because we are all familiar with that, they use points, so you can accumulate points as you buy things, right? And then one of the great things that they do inside the app is show you a progress bar. So they show you how far you have yet to go to get more stars and enough stars for a free drink or pastry, etc. And then they also do fun things like little challenges, which is also a piece of gamification, where they say, hey, if you buy something from Starbucks 5 days in a row, then you will get this many points. And then, of course, they have like holiday games and summer games, which are like an advanced, more futuristic version of what we all know, which was McDonald's Monopoly. Do you remember that?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
That may be like the original example of gamification in a mass scale by a retailer. And obviously that was a lot more hands-on and less technology, but you get the idea of how those tactics are motivating people to do something specific, right? And in both cases, it's getting us as consumers to buy more.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, it really does. And
yeah.
As you were giving that definition, I was actually thinking about the Starbucks app.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is a great example, and it shows you how powerful gamification can be, because I believe the number is 30% of Starbucks sales are from Starbucks Rewards owners. And actually, I think it's more than that. I'll have to check my facts, but it's a big number. So It really affects people's purchasing behaviors. I know I'm guilty, and I even know what's behind that strategy.
Right.
But I'm like, I only have to go 5 days in a row and I'll get 100 more points. Okay.
Done. But the thing is, I think, and this may be an obvious statement, but gamification also incorporates fun into the experience, right?
Yes,
like
absolutely.
The dopamine or whatever, all of the chemical hits that you get from completing a challenge, or like, ooh, I got rewards, so my upgrade for coconut milk, which is my thing, is paid for. And you just feel like you're like hacking the system, but really you're engaging with their brand even more.
Yes. And I think that's the thing that's so fascinating about gamification to me is I've always been fascinated by human behavior in lots of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just an extension of that. So when you said dopamine, that's perfect because we are all motivated by challenge, accomplishment, achievement, right? Or I mean, challenge, achievement, dopamine, right? So think about that: challenge, achievement, dopamine. And that dopamine is that positive hit you get anytime you see a little red mark next to your Facebook page saying you have another comment or another like or another notification. Facebook does gamification really well also, which is why we're all so addicted to it.
Right, exactly.
It's not our fault. It's Facebook's fault.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, wonderful. So how did you actually get into specializing in this area?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, I have been in the training industry for over 20 years. So have been teaching in all different kinds of capacities. And then just in the last 8 or 9 years, I started teaching as adjunct faculty at a couple universities. And the things that I would teach would be a lot of soft skills, leadership, motivation, things like that, but also marketing and selling. And the marketing and selling really motivated me to learn more about human behavior. And then being a teacher itself motivated me to not be standing in front of a bunch of people who were completely unengaged. Right?
Right.
Because, I mean, there's nothing worse than standing in front of a group of, let's say, 20-year-olds at 8 a.m. in the morning, and they are not responding to you, and they are just staring at you with blank faces. So over the years of training, I kind of developed my own way of ensuring that my classes, my courses were engaged and that they were excited to be there. And that, to be honest, one of the very selfish reasons was I knew I could get paid more if my feedback came back as very positive, right? This was the class. This was super exciting. The instructor was so engaging. I knew that would help me to get paid more, but also it helped the students get results. So it was kind of an odd thing. Like I had been teaching for a long time and kind of developing my own system for making sure that I wasn't standing in front of a bunch of blank faces for 4 hours. And I heard a podcast about gamification. And I was like, oh, that sounds really interesting. Really dug into it and realized that a lot of the things I was using were gamification. So then I just kind of went all in and got certified in a couple different levels of gamification. And I'm really fascinated by all of it. And like I said, kind of combining the education and the gamification has just been really, really awesome.
That is incredible. And something that struck me as you were explaining this process is you even gamified the process for yourself. You're like, well, if I get better results, I can get better pay. Yes. How can I up level? You know, like
exactly.
How can I gamify my own experience? So that's
yeah. I had a goal, right? Like I said, I wanted my students to get results so I could be a quality teacher, but I also wanted them to be able to say like, oh, that was an amazing class and I had so much fun, so I could get paid more. And It all worked out. Yeah.
Brilliant. So, all right, you are talking to entrepreneurs and business owners at this moment.
Yeah.
Why is gamification important as an entrepreneur or business owner?
So this might be a controversial statement, but whatever you are selling, whatever you are teaching, 100 other people are selling that same thing or teaching that same thing, right? And it's one of the first things that I teach my marketing students is, look, whatever idea you come up with is probably not the first time that idea has been thought of. So it's your job to make sure that it's interesting and appealing to the customer in a way that they want to buy from you and not one of your other 100 potential competitors, right? So gamification is one way to do that. It's a way to stand out, to create some fun, to create an experience for your customers. And in online courses, which is kind of what I'm focusing on, it's a way to set yourself apart from a typical online course. So it's important in business because as business expands and as your business expands, you have to grow. You have to get better at what you're doing if you want to continue to have a successful business and to have people choose you over your competitors.
Without question. Without question. Yes. And what I also think is interesting is, let's say 100 other people are teaching the same thing you are. Well, first of all, that's not a bad thing. That means there's a bunch of
Right.
buyers.
Yeah, not a bad thing. No.
Yes. And then all you really need to do is go the extra mile and you'll stand out. So they've
Yep.
proven there are buyers and really just deliver on the experience. And here, I would love to know your thoughts on this actually. I feel like we are much more, from a consumer perspective, we are much more into paying for experiences.
Mm-hmm.
We're willing to pay a premium for an experience versus just a product.
Absolutely.
What's your take on that?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm totally guilty of that all the time. And again, what's funny is even when you know all the behind the scenes stuff about how human behavior works and how marketing works and how gamification works, you still fall for it, which tells you how powerful it is, right?
Right.
But I tell this to my students all the time. We'll go back to Starbucks because I can't help myself, but there are a lot of coffee shops in the small town that I live in. This town the population is about 60,000 people. But for 60,000 people, we have 12 coffee shops.
Wow.
The problem is most of those coffee shops are just serving coffee. And that's fine, but there aren't enough people in this community who just want coffee. They want an experience with their coffee. And that's why Starbucks still does really well, because they do a really good job of training their baristas, of the rewards, of the environment, of the music they provide. Everything they do is providing that experience. Now, if you want to go like kind of a higher level with this, it's shown that people are spending, like especially millennials, are spending more money on doing things than they are on buying things. But that doesn't mean that they won't buy things that have doing things wrapped around it, right?
Right.
So buying, for example, like Tom's shoes, right? That was really a popular thing to do about 8 years ago, because it wasn't just buying shoes. It was buying the experience of helping someone else out. So yes, you are correct. Buying an experience is way more important to most people than just buying a thing.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, it makes sense, doesn't it? It really does.
And honestly, those are the people you want as your customers. You don't want customers who just want the cheapest price.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Because they'll nickel and dime.
Yes.
They'll be the support hell.
Yes.
Always asking
customers who want
for a refund.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. So in addition to Starbucks, because clearly they're doing this very well.
Yeah.
Would you mind sharing a couple other brands, maybe even a little bit more accessible in size to whoever may be listening today that's doing gamification really well in their business?
You bet. So one of my favorite places in my community is the gym. It's called True. So it's I think it's a small franchise, but the location here, it's called True Fitness. And what they do, because obviously getting to the gym is a challenge, right? And it's good for them if their members become more frequent at showing up at the gym, right? Building a habit so that when it comes time to renew their membership, they're ready to do that. They're in the habit of showing up 3 to 4 times a week, right? And they don't want to give up their membership. It's also good for the members, because if they're showing up more often, they're getting better results. So what they do is every once in a while, they'll do a fun little challenge, right? So for Christmas, they handed out these beautiful little cards, and I think they were like 5 by 7, and they were glossy and beautiful, and they had like check or like punch boxes. And so you had to do certain things to get punches on this card. And if you got so many punches, then you would be put into a drawing for different kinds of prizes. And then if you had like the most punches, which I think was 20, then you got, I think it was 2 or 3 free sessions of personal training, which is actually genius, because then for the people who win 2 or 3 sessions, they're probably going to fall in love with that personal training. And now you have an upsell, right? And it's a small gym. And I asked them once, actually, I was like, you're doing such a great job at adding this gamification to the gym. Who's your marketing person? And they're like, oh no, it's just us. So totally doable, even if you're just one person running your business.
Wow. That's great to hear. That's wonderful to hear.
Yeah. And another quick example is any place you go that has like a punch card, whether it's like a restaurant or, go back to the coffee shops again.
Right.
That is a simple, very early on example of gamification, because it's like a progress bar, right? Once you get 2 or 3 punches on that punch card, you are motivated to keep going back and keep making purchases so you can get to that free meal, right?
Yeah.
And one of the really cool things I read about once was that your chances of getting a repeat customer from that punch card goes up something like 60% if you give them 2 punches instead of 1 on their first visit. And it's such a like, it's like tricking the brain. So they feel like, oh, wow, I have 2 instead of only 1. Now I'm more motivated to keep going.
That's really good. And you know what it also makes me think of is Target. They have, like they have the red card, which can be like a debit or credit, whatever. And so like I have the red card, debit card. And at the bottom of my receipt, every time, because you save 5% by using it, every time it shows you how much you've saved that calendar year. And so I remember one time I was just like, woohoo, I've saved over $100. And I was like, wait a minute. So that's 5%. That means I've spent over $6,000.
We don't think about that part.
No, we don't like to think about that. But it was just like, the hit of like, yes, I've somehow gamed the system.
Yes.
So I'm winning at Target.
Absolutely. Yes.
That's awesome. So because you specialize in online courses, or that's where you're focusing on right now.
Yeah.
Do you know of any would you mind sharing any course creators that you've seen that do gamification really well?
Yeah. I actually think Stu McLaren does a really good job with his Tribe course. So the thing about gamification, and my particular kind of process for adding it to online courses is called engaging gamification. And there's several things that are kind of in that process. So basically there's 5 principles. So engaging gamification is making progress visible, providing feedback loops, my mind went blank, fun and celebration, simplify, and micro learning. So he does a really good job of incorporating all of those things. So he has numerous ways of making sure that you can see your progress. So each module, each lesson, you get to physically click it as done, right?
Yes, which is so satisfying, right?
It is. And that's exactly it. Each one of those little things moves people along. And when you're teaching an online course, that's what you want people to do. You want them to continue to consume your content so they implement it and get results.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So actually, would you mind taking 1 or 2 of those? And I know you mentioned how Stu does the progress, but like micro learning, actually that word kind of, I just want to know more. Would you mind like digging a little bit more into that?
Of course. So micro learning is basically the concept that our human brains are not set up to consume masses of information all at one time. So first of all, we're not set up to consume tons of information in one sitting, right? Number 2, as busy as everybody is these days, if you want someone to complete your online course, you're going to have to give it to them in tiny, tiny pieces so they can listen to your audio or watch your video while they're in the taxi, right? Or while they're waiting in line at the grocery store, little pieces. So micro learning basically says that like your ultimate time frame for, let's say, a recorded video is no more than 15 minutes. Now, you and I have probably both been through courses where the videos are 45 minutes to an hour long.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that we don't do it. It's just harder for people to get through it. And it's our job as online course creators to make it as easy as possible. Again, because it's twofold. Your course members are going to implement and get results, and that's good for them. And because they're getting results, they're going to sing your praises, and then you can, get positive feedback about that for your next round of marketing. And also, they're a prime candidate for your next level, right? Maybe it's your high level coaching. If they've gone through your course and they've gotten great results, now they're willing to spend even more money with you and continue on along your customer journey.
Beautiful, beautiful. So really it is just thinking about your customers, where they're at, thinking about when they'll engage with it, the context in which they'll watch. Like you said, it could be like a taxi or Uber or grocery store line, whatever, like the pockets of time is how I think about it.
Yeah.
And that's even how I choose to listen to podcasts. I'm like, well, I have 15 minutes. I'll listen to whatever.
Yes.
So I love that piece of it. But then also it's like once someone has already consumed your content, and I guess I'm speaking from my own experience, those courses that you referenced that we've all taken that had 45-minute or so videos, it was so hard to go back and actually find. I was like, I remember they addressed this.
Yes.
But I don't have time to watch this whole video again versus like,
yes,
just thinking through like, how will someone be able to come back and reference this as well?
Right.
So I think it's brilliant.
Yeah. And is it really your students' job to try to find information?
Right.
No, right.
Yes.
They're paying you to give them the information. So the short videos, you got it, Jenny. The short videos make it much easier to find information when they need it again, which they're, whoever watches something one time through and they're like, got it, perfect, keep going, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So yes, you brought up a very good point there.
Nice. So what about someone's business? And we are supposing that, like obviously our listeners, most of them have online businesses or they're predominantly online, or the others are looking to add online components. So with that in mind, how can these business owners think about bringing gamification into their business? Like at what point?
Well, I think it's important from day one, right? Anytime you're providing a service or a product, that's when you should start thinking about it, because gamification, it can be added afterwards, right? But if you're at the beginning of your business, why not start thinking about it now? Thinking about how you can make it basically easier on yourself to get customers, to be able to charge higher prices, and to get them to become return customers, because you've helped them to get results, whatever that may mean for your business, and you've delivered an experience to them that might actually be a little bit of fun, right?
Yeah. Well said. Well said. So if someone was looking to add gamification into their business from the product perspective, say an online course, I think we can wrap our minds around what that can look like. And I'm sure, like, I'll be asking you about some recommendations here in a bit on software and things like that. But what if they wanted to add gamification into other parts of their business? So let's say it was something like customer support or onboarding. Even if they have some kind of a business or a part of the component of their business is offline, is there a way that, like, what questions could they ask to start thinking about bringing gamification into maybe the other areas that aren't
for sure? Yeah. And keep in mind that gamification can be as simple, like I said, as a punch card. I believe the first kind of agreed upon occurrence of including gamification into a product was when Cracker Jack put like a prize in the box.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I think that was like 1912. So
wow.
It does not have to be complicated. And I like to talk a lot about how technology does not even have to be part of the equation. It can be. So to bring it into your business, the questions that you want to ask yourself are, number one, and the most important one is, what do I want the customers to do? Right? What is the outcome? Because you can add games and prizes, and you can add points and things like that. But if you don't know what you're trying to get your customers to do, that's going to all be a big waste of your time. So the first question I would ask is, what do you want them to achieve? The second question I would ask is, what is the easiest way that I can get them to do that? Right? What's the easiest way to incorporate the kind of the principles of gamification? And the reason I always ask that question is, if you start getting into complications of technology and coming up with these grand schemes, it's most likely not going to happen, right?
Right.
And you can also over confuse your customers. So my husband gets really mad at me a lot because I don't like to play card games. I don't like to play card games unless it's Uno or Go Fish, because to me, there's too many rules. It's too complicated, right? And maybe if I took the time to learn it, it would be a different story. But my point there is that I refuse to do something if it becomes too complicated for me, right?
Yeah.
You never want to have a game or any kind of point system or anything along those lines that's so complicated that people just go, I don't get it, because then obviously it doesn't do any good, right?
Right.
And the third thing I would tell you or have you ask, so first is, what do you want them to accomplish? Second is, what's the easiest way I can incorporate gamification? And then number three is, did that work? Right? So go back and analyze your results so that you know, should I do that same idea again? Should I expand on it, or should I just drop it all together and start from scratch?
That's good. That's good. And I appreciate the simplicity of that framework because, yes, again, as business owners, we we don't generally just sit around with nothing to do.
Right.
But then we're also really looking to serve our clients at the highest level with this framework too. So I think you've hit all the points with that. That's brilliant. Yeah. Nice. So I know, and I referenced that I would ask you about this a couple moments ago, but what platforms would you recommend for someone exploring gamification for an online part of their business?
Yeah. So my answer again might be kind of controversial, but I don't have a particular platform that I recommend. And the reason for that is we can all get lost in the question of what's the best fill in the blank, right? How many times have we tried to figure out, like, what's the best email software? What's the best, right? What's the best software for creating a sales funnel? And you can ask 100 different people and get 100 different answers. So at some point you just have to decide for yourself. So I'm really, I strongly suggest that you use whatever you already have and incorporate gamification in ways that may not involve the technology. Now, that's not to say that there aren't platforms that have some kind of gamification built in. And if you have a particular platform that you're using, ask the support group or just do a little bit of searching. And you may run into those different elements that your software has. But even if you just use Facebook right now, like, you can create a whole online course on Facebook because they have groups that are called social learning groups. And within that, they have gamification already built in. You can separate material out into units. They have progress bars. The students can check that they've done each thing. So, and that's free, right?
Yeah.
So to me, it's not about, to me, it's not what is the best platform. To me, it's what platform do you have? Go with that, because you're more likely to actually incorporate it into your business and you get better results faster.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Great answer. I appreciate that. And I appreciate controversy around that too. Wonderful. Well, what is one of the things that has surprised you the most about gamification?
Well, I think the thing that surprised me the most is how prevalent it really is. And a lot of us don't, if you aren't looking for it, you don't see that it's there. But again, it works on us, right? Mm-hmm. So like another example would be the Apple Watch, right? So I'm wearing mine today. Mm-hmm. The thing that you may overlook if you're not aware of gamification is how much time Apple put into designing the circles, right? So if you get whatever your calorie goal is for the day, if you get that, then the circle closes and it does this fun little, like, hooray, you did it, right?
So satisfying.
Yeah, it is. It is. I'm not even close today. Dang it. So I think that's the thing that's surprising to me, is that so many large companies and small companies are incorporating it because they know it helps affect human behavior. The companies that are really successful, or the entrepreneurs who are really successful at implementing it, are the ones who are thinking about what results do they want, right? What results do they want on the end, and designing whatever gamification they include for that outcome, right? I think the other thing that's kind of surprising when I first got into gamification was, obviously it's called gamification for a reason. A lot of it is based on the concept of games, right? Now, if gamification kind of started in 1912, well, we're only talking about board games at that time.
Oh, sure.
Most of us can probably relate to video games from like the late 80s, early 90s, like Super Mario Brothers and Zelda and things like that. All of those are great examples, obviously, of gamification. That's where a lot of this came from. But when you really start to analyze what the principles of gamification are, you start to see them in the games we played, right? And why perhaps we spent so many hours playing them. So it's just kind of fun to look back and see all of the things that really do have gamification wrapped into them.
Right. And I would imagine that our listeners, and I'll speak for myself, but after listening to this episode, will start to see more and more gamification in their world, from like a grocery store to the coffee shop to the gym to all the social networks we're a part of, and the different courses, obviously, as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, is there like a next best move for our listeners to say, you know what, I'm really interested. I'm sold on the idea of gamification. I think it'll help me serve my clients better. I think it'll be more profitable for my business. What would the next step be as we wrap up this episode?
Yeah. So if you are looking for like external resources, there are a couple really amazing books that talk about gamification. I've got a few of them behind me here. I would say probably one of my favorite ones is called Gamify.
Mm-hmm.
Gamify. I don't have the author's not. I don't have it right on the top of my head, but also Play to Learn is an amazing book, and that's really centered more on education and how incorporating gamification into the whole education system has made some huge differences in how it can continue to impact students. But also, you can always visit my Facebook group, which is Engaging Gamification. So if you just search for that on Facebook, you will certainly find our group and kind of join up with some other like-minded people who are interested in applying this to their business.
Wonderful. And then in addition to that Facebook group, where can our listeners go to find out more about work and resources you've created?
Yeah, so you can go to engaginggamification.com. So Engaging Gamification, that's kind of a mouthful, .com. And the first thing you'll see there is a freebie called 5 Easy Peasy Ways to Add Engaging Gamification to Your Online Course.
Love it.
And yeah, and even if you don't have an online course, it's a great download for you because it goes through the 5 principles of engaging gamification into more detail than what we talked about today, and gives some examples that'll really help get your mind started.
Great. And then we will make sure to list those resources in the show notes. So
awesome.
Tama-Lea, this was so much fun. Thank you for just sharing the gold around gamification and why we should really value it as business owners wanting to up-level what we do.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. Thanks again for joining us on another episode of Up Level with Ginny Townsend. I can't wait to see you next week. Until then, continue to be up and to the right.